So lately I am in this space of looking back at my family relationships, the dynamics in a different way. I am the daughter of a sociopath and a narcissist. So in other words, I'm a motherless daughter. I never had a mom. And my grandmother was definitely the queen of the narcissist as I look back on all of the triangulation that she created between my mother and I, like showing me the love that she would never give to my mother kind of thing, which was what my mother was trying to do to my daughter, but I went no contact and put an end to it. She's also the woman who fed me to my grandfather, who was a child. I'm looking also at my mother's sisters. So I used to have a favorite aunt who is no longer my favorite aunt. And she was the middle child. And she's the one who has some empathy. I think she had a lot of empathy in a lot of ways, but also is just really upside down. Like she went to my son when he was 12 or 13 and he was a complete stranger to her. Like she hadn't seen him since he was a little kid and asked him about, whether he believed my grandfather did things to me. Like she has empathy for certain things, but not, I don't even know. I don't know where to classify her yet because like I said, lately I'm looking back at family relationships and dynamics and I'm still processing who she really was and letting go and grieving who I thought she was, because she was the one who wrote me in a card once and said, "I'm proud of you." And I had never heard those words from anyone in my family. And well, really, technically, I still haven't heard them. But having that in writing from her was really significant for me. And she was the one who did show me affection and kindness here and there. And I really loved her as a child growing up. But as it is with abuse situations, a lot of times the big abusers look really bad. So anything else that isn't that bad looks really good, when in fact it might be just as bad, just in a different way. And I see a lot of people, I have clients who are the survivors of narcissistic family systems. I'm a therapist, that's what I do. So I see people who struggle with this, particularly when one parent was highly abusive, the narcissistic abuser, and the other parent was not. But there were other dynamics in there, like they might have been parentified by that other parent and they thought they were close to them and being protected by them in some ways. So there's a lot of moving pieces that go along in these family dynamics. And I am now at 58, so long out of therapy and all of this stuff, beginning to reevaluate those relationships because I'm just having the same memories from a different lens. And that's what happens as we're healing. That's why healing is a lifelong journey. And I guess I'm entering kind of a phase of grieving the last of it. That's what I feel like. And as I'm trying to make sense out of things that will never make sense, because child abuse will never make sense, I'm putting relationships into kind of these categories sort of thing and recognizing who was what. So my mother's youngest sister was also quite a bully, and she also is very narcissistic and also is estranged from her daughter. And I don't know what went on between them as fact, because I've been estranged for such a long time and I'm older than that daughter and we don't have any communication. And while I did try to seek her out at one point, I recognized if she wanted to be found, she would be. And I don't want to, go and scratch at her wounds. That's not my place to do that. And I'm out here enough and I have a book, and if she wants to find me, I know that she can. And if she doesn't, and that's her choice, I just hope she's living the most fabulous life wherever she is. Anyway, that aunt is very narcissistic. Her and my mother both really doubled down on the narrative around me. And it isn't lost on me that I am the first female child. I'm the first female grandchild. I was the first female born to the sisters, so the first female niece. And therefore, I'm guessing, not guessing, the evidence shows that I was the first target of the women in the family in different ways. And I'm going to remove my favorite aunt because I haven't really, I'm just not focusing on her right now. My mother and my and her youngest sister, what should I call her? I don't know. I'll think. The narc aunt, okay? The two of them, when my mother would start a narrative like, oh, that Marnie has quite an imagination, the other aunt would run with it as she's always been the family liar. And that same aunt, up until about 10 years ago, to my knowledge, I don't know what's happened in the last 10 years, told one of my very distant cousins that I've always been the family liar. She's still holding on to that. And she was also, like my mother, behaving in ways that showed jealousy and disdain towards me. What really made this something at the forefront for me, where I'm recognizing this now, was that day in the elevator. It's a video that I posted, a couple of videos before this one, where my uncle had his hands on my shoulders. I was around 8 or 9 years old, and I was leaning back on him. And by leaning back, I wasn't leaning into him or anything like that. Not that that would have been a bad thing. I mean, I'm a little girl and I don't line up to him in any way. There's no sexuality around it whatsoever, but she, sexualis, did that thing around it. She made it into something dirty. And somebody commented, well, maybe she knew something about your uncle that you didn't. And maybe, I don't know. I never had a feeling about him, an experience with him, anything in connection to him, other than he felt really kind and funny, and I adored him. And I don't agree that that's what the reasoning behind her behavior that day was, because I remember how angry she was at me. And she didn't address him in the way that she addressed me. Like, she said something to him like, that's not okay, kind of thing, but she really went after me and blamed me. So if you're a girl, a female, a woman out there, and you were the family scapegoat, I'm curious to know if you are also the firstborn daughter of that whole generation. I think it would be interesting to see if that's also a part of the pattern within the system. I know it's a part of the pattern when the mother is narcissistic. The firstborn daughter in the beginning may not be a scapegoat, might be like a golden child, but then when the next child comes along, the firstborn daughter is typically turned into the scapegoat. It's just what I see in the pattern of my own practice with my clients. I see that over and over and over again, where the firstborn daughter may not have been a scapegoat, might have been the golden child, or nothing remarkable at all, just like, you know, whatever. And then when the next child came along, whether it was male or female, that firstborn daughter was scapegoated. So I'm just curious to know, how many firstborn daughters are there out there, and how many firstborn girls of the entire generation are out there that had a similar experience to mine?